There is a device smaller than a hardcover book that can be bolted to your roof for $18, generates electricity continuously, has no moving parts, produces no noise, consumes no fuel, and requires no maintenance for a decade. It does not need sunlight. It does not need wind. It needs only the heat that is already escaping your home every single day and disappearing into the atmosphere for free. This technology was validated by NASA. It has powered every deep space mission from Apollo to Perseverance. Right now, it is keeping the Voyager probe transmitting data from 15 billion miles away. Yet it is not on your roof. It is not on your neighbor's roof. It has never been offered to you by a utility company, a contractor, or a government efficiency program. The question is not whether it works. The question is who benefits from you never finding out. In 1821, a German physicist named Thomas Johann Seebeck made a discovery that should have changed everything. He connected two strips of different metals into a closed loop, applied heat to one junction while keeping the other cold, and watched a compass needle deflect. No battery, no generator, no combustion, just a temperature difference producing a measurable, continuous electrical current. He had no complete explanation for it. He simply documented what physics was doing on its own. We now call it the Seebeck effect, and it is the foundational principle behind thermoelectric generation. The mechanism is precise. When two dissimilar semiconductor materials are sandwiched between a hot surface and a cold surface, the heat differential forces electrons to migrate from the hot side to the cold side, creating a directional flow of charge. That flow is electricity. It is not simulated, not approximated. It is the same process, operating under the same laws every single time. NASA understood this immediately. Every deep space mission in history has relied on thermoelectric generators for exactly one reason: reliability. No moving parts means no mechanical failure. No fuel combustion means no exhaust, no ignition risk, no depletion. The Voyager probes, launched in 1977, are still transmitting coherent data from the edge of the solar system because thermoelectric modules do not wear out the way engines do. Apollo used them. Curiosity used them. Perseverance uses them today. The active material inside a modern thermoelectric module is bismuth telluride, a crystalline semiconductor ceramic roughly the size of a postage stamp. It costs less than $20 on industrial supply platforms. It operates silently, indefinitely, and without intervention. The same physics keeping a spacecraft alive at 15 billion miles from Earth has been sitting dormant above your fireplace every winter of your life. Every home that burns fuel to generate heat is also running a second, invisible process simultaneously. It is wasting that heat on a massive, continuous metered scale. The United States Department of Energy estimates that the average American home loses between 20 and 30% of its total heating energy through the roof and vents every single winter. Not a technical malfunction, not an edge case. A structural feature of how residential heating has always worked. That is hundreds of dollars worth of thermal energy rising through your chimney, passing through your flue pipe, and dissolving into the cold night air every single heating season. It has always done this. It will continue doing this until something intercepts it. That something already exists in your home's own architecture. Every chimney, every vent stack, every gas furnace flue pipe is already a heat differential engine. It runs a hot surface in direct contact with cold outside air, separated by nothing but a thin metal wall. The temperature gap across that wall on a cold January night is not trivial. Between a wood stove flue running at full burn and the outside air at freezing, the differential routinely reaches 80, 100, sometimes 150 degrees Fahrenheit. That gap is precisely what drives thermoelectric output. The steeper the gradient, the higher the voltage. your chimney is already producing the exact conditions a thermoelectric module requires. It simply has nothing attached to it. Wrap that flue pipe with bismuth telluride modules and a finned aluminum heatsink on the cold side, and the physics activates immediately. Hot side contacts the pipe. Cold side faces the air. Electrons migrate. Current flows. On a minimal single module setup attached to a small gas furnace, output begins around 5 watts. On an optimized wood stove installation with multiple modules and proper thermal management, sustained output reaches 40 to 50 watts continuously for every hour the stove burns. That is not enough to power your refrigerator. It is absolutely enough to keep your lights, your phone, your radio, and your internet router running through any blackout, for any duration, from energy you were already discarding. The institutional validation is real. The physics is documented. But the most durable proof of any technology is not a laboratory paper or a NASA mission profile. It is the accumulated testimony of ordinary people who built it themselves, ran it through real winters, and reported back honestly. That testimony exists, and it is vast. On Reddit, in communities like R Off-Grid and R Preppers, thermoelectric chimney builds have been circulating for years. A retired HVAC technician from Minnesota posted a detailed build log documenting how he wrapped his wood stove flue with 4 thermoelectric modules and a salvaged heatsink. His result was a steady 14 watts during burn cycles, enough to run his phone, his LED lights, and a small radio indefinitely through winter storms. The post collected over 8,000 upvotes. In the comments, a licensed electrical engineer from Texas wrote that the physics was sound and that the reason this never reached commercial scale was not because it failed, but because its energy density was too low to threaten the grid, yet too useful to ignore for anyone living off it. That single observation contains the entire story. On YouTube, builders with hundreds of thousands of subscribers have been demonstrating working prototypes for years. Their comment sections read like a global field report. A commenter from a village in Nepal wrote that his family had been charging phones and powering a single LED bulb from their cooking stove vent for 3 years without a single component failure. 3 years. Zero maintenance. Zero cost beyond the initial build. Then there is Paul Lapointe, a retired electrical engineer from northern Vermont, who in 2019 documented his build on a small off-grid forum. 6 bismuth telluride modules attached to his wood stove flue pipe. The cold side was connected to a finned aluminum heatsink salvaged from a decommissioned computer server. From October through April, his system produced a continuous 47 watts for every hour the stove burned. Over that single winter, the setup generated more than 200 kilowatt hours of electricity. Free, silent. From heat he was already producing to stay warm. When an ice storm knocked out the grid in February 2020, his neighbors sat in the dark for 3 days. Paul never noticed the outage until someone knocked on his door, asking to charge a phone. These stories are not rare. They are simply not televised. In 2019, a research team at MIT published a paper in the journal Nature Materials demonstrating that next-generation thermoelectric materials could achieve efficiencies between 15% and 20%. That range is directly comparable to a standard residential solar panel. The paper received modest coverage in science publications, then nothing. No major funding announcements, no utility partnerships, no commercial development pipeline, no government efficiency program added it to their recommendations. A technology with the potential to harvest free electricity from existing residential heat sources reached the pages of one of the most respected scientific journals on Earth. and the institutional response was silence. Compare that to solar. Tens of billions of dollars in federal subsidies, state tax incentives, manufacturer rebates, and grid integration programs. The infrastructure of adoption was built deliberately, publicly, and at enormous expense. Thermoelectric recovery received none of it. The reason is not technical, it is structural. Energy analyst Doomberg published a widely circulated thread in 2023, laying out the core problem precisely. Distributed generation, meaning electricity produced at the point of use rather than purchased from a centralized utility, is the single most destabilizing force in the traditional energy business model. Every kilowatt hour a homeowner generates independently is a kilowatt hour that Duke Energy, Southern Company, or Pacific Gas and Electric cannot bill them for. The arithmetic is straightforward. 50 million American homes, each producing 50 watts of continuous baseline power, represents 2.5 gigawatts of permanent distributed generation. The output of 2.5 nuclear reactors, running indefinitely, appears on no utility's revenue report. That number does not have to be large to be threatening. It has to be uncontrollable. In 2022, Florida moved to classify small thermoelectric home generation setups as regulated power sources requiring permits, inspections, and fees. The rule was withdrawn after public backlash, but the intent was already documented. In Vermont, a homeowner casually mentioned her chimney generator on a local community forum. Her utility company sent a representative to her property shortly afterward. No citation was issued. They simply wanted to document the installation. Document it for what? She never received a clear answer. Building one of these systems is not a specialist operation. It does not require an electrician, a permit, or an engineering degree. It requires a heat source that runs regularly, the correct modules, and an afternoon. The heat source comes first. A wood stove, a pellet stove, or a gas furnace flue pipe all qualify. The requirement is simple: a surface that runs hot consistently through the heating season. The hotter and the longer it runs, the higher the output. The thermoelectric modules themselves must be rated for high temperatures, ideally 300 degrees Celsius or above. This is non-negotiable. Standard low-temperature modules will degrade rapidly when attached to a wood stove flue running at full burn. The correct specification is available from industrial electronics suppliers. The TG126 module, available from multiple wholesalers, costs under $20. That is the $18 figure in the headline. That is the heart of the entire system. On the cold side of each module, you mount a finned aluminum heat sink. Its function is to maintain the temperature differential by dissipating heat into the surrounding air. Without it, both sides of the module equalize in temperature and output collapses. The heat sink is available at any electronics supplier or salvageable from any decommissioned computer server. Output from the modules feeds into a small charge controller, identical to those used in residential solar setups, which regulates current into a battery bank. Total system cost across verified community builds ranges from $60 to $200, depending on the number of modules and battery capacity. Output ranges from 5 watts on a minimal single module installation to over 100 watts on a fully optimized multi-module design. A properly installed module lasts between 8 and 15 years. Replacement cost is $15 to $30. The input fuel is heat you are already producing. The efficiency argument is irrelevant. When the input is free, even a 5% conversion is pure gain. A metal wafer the size of a coaster, bolted to a stovepipe, humming silently, asking nothing of anyone except a willingness to pay attention. The barrier was never technical, it was cultural. We were trained to believe that energy independence requires massive infrastructure, serious capital, and corporate permission, it does not. In Vermont and Nepal and rural Alaska, people stopped waiting. They built the system themselves, from parts costing less than a dinner out, and they quietly disappeared from the utilities customer list. The question has already been asked. In garages and workshops and off-grid cabins across the country, the answer is already running.